The GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Are you ready for this? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's Wednesday, September the 16th, 2015, and welcome to the BCS Experience, History, Arts, Culture, and Politics in Review and Discussion. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. The BCS Experience takes a look at our rich history, African American history. We're going to share with you some known and unknown historical facts and information from the past and connect the dots on how they have impacted on our present day events and how they will definitely shape our future as African Americans in this country and around the world. The BCS Experience, History, Arts, Culture, Politics in Review and Discussion. This is Internet Radio and will be aired live every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. from the studios of the Iron Metropolis Images on the GoPro Radio Network. You see, I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you all across the country and around the globe. I want you to tune in every week on your computer or your phone. I want you to become a loyal listener. And I personally invite you to lend your voices to this radio talk show, to express your opinions on my weekly topics. This is social network radio at its finest. Now, here's the number for you to call in to be a part of the discussion. Call 347-884-9839. Once again, that number to call is 347-884-9839. This week's topic, oh my goodness, history, 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 a celebration of known and unknown heroes and sheroes that need to be recognized for their amazing contributions to the rich cultural legacy of African Americans and the African Diaspora. My show is the new Underground Railroad Express. Next stop is your neighborhood. All aboard to freedom and to Freedom Land. All right, we're going to jump right in it. I got 14 incredible historic pieces of information, 14 incredible people, and we're going to get right into it because I don't want to waste any time tonight. So here we go. Number one, the date. It's Sunday. It's September the 15th, 1963. And I see on this date, 1963, 4 African-American schoolgirls were killed in a bombing at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. Addie Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robeson, and Cynthia Wesley were the victims. This act of racial violence galvanizes the civil rights movement. 2 of the murderers are dead, one while in prison for the crime. The other 2 were indicted earlier this year. This next minute is in honor of our fallen sheroes. Reflect and remember.
Every Negro who refuses to go down to try to register What murdered these four girls? The apathy and the complacency of many Negroes who will sit down on their stools of do nothing and not engage in creative protest to get rid of this evil system. Get rid of this evil system. What murdered these four young girls was the Negro business and professional individual who's more concerned about his job than he's concerned about freedom and justice.
Wow. That was a day of infamy. Sad. We lost those four little girls, but never to be forgotten. They were martyrs. We honor them today on the BCS Experience. All right. I want to hear from you, so let's connect the dots and make sense out of it all. Let's talk. Call me. 347-884-9839. Tonight I have my very special guest joining me in the GoPro radio studio is none other than you, my listening audience, and with another opportunity to appreciate our rich cultural history and learn how it impacts on our lives today. I already got two callers on the line. Let's bring them right on in. Good evening and welcome to the BCS Experience. Who might you be?
Hello, Lenny God. Hello.
Lenny, oh my goodness, my producer. Oh my goodness, Lenny Godfrey. I honor you as well. You are a Broadway, television, movie actress. You have two projects that are about to explode on the New York City theatrical scene. You want to talk about them?
Well, I do, but first I do want to talk about what you just recorded and talk about the lives and the assassinations of those four beautiful little girls, and how we must always remember that was done, that how people have sacrificed and died for us. It's a very important thing. I don't think that we remember enough. I think, and that is one of the reasons why these projects are coming alive. I think they're a reminder for us about our history, and we cannot go forward and look back.
You know, Lenny, the other thing about it is that in that opening sequence in Selma, that movie that was so amazing, that's the scene that's depicted of them coming down the stairs of the side of that church where it was exploded. That was riveting. And you're right. And this, especially with all the conversations today about hashtag Black Lives Matter, we should never, ever forget, and they're right, it must matter. 400 plus years, hashtag Black Lives Matter.
It really has to matter.
That's right.
But we can't take it for granted. It is not excluding anyone else.
That's right.
But we really must understand that we have our own situations that we have to protect and pay attention to.
Amen.
We have opinions, we have culture, we have traditions that we are responsible for to make sure that people understand, and by understanding those things, they understand us. And for us to be understood, then the world begins to be understood. And that's how I see it going. It's one person's opinion, that's all.
Well, I mean, it's a great opinion, and you have a voice that people listen to, Lenny, and that's why it's important. And I thank you for calling the show. And I got to get to my other 13 pieces, but tell us what you've got on your plate, because you've got two incredible projects about to explode here in New York City.
Well, yes, thank you. There are two plays. One is called Unentitled, and that's by Charles White, and it deals with the economic impact of the 2008 economic history of the downsizing that happened to the entire economy and how it affected the black middle class. And so that particular play takes place with a black middle class family that owns property in Sag Harbor. And the one thing that it is specific about is who is entitled to the ownership of this and who is entitled to sell it. And both family members are confronted with the idea of selling it and how it affects them and what their backgrounds are and how different their backgrounds are, how this property is viewed. That's our lives. Those are our lives today. We deal with that. The other project is, it's called Greenwood, An American Dream Destroyed. and it tells the tale of the 1921 race riot in Greenwood, Oklahoma, known as Black Wall Street, but really originally known as Negro Wall Street.
Yes.
And it is one of the more successful 56 boom towns, and how this town was celebrated by the population in it. It was all African American right there and on a rich, oil-rich town, and how a supposed race incident caused the destruction of that town in 38 hours.
That's right. Amazing story, and coming to you at a theater in New York City. I'm telling you.
We're doing 2 readings of it. One is going to be Monday, in fact.
Yes.
And that will be at the Susan Batson Studios at 300 West 43rd Street on the 3rd floor. And the second will be October the 19th, and that will be at La Mama.
All right.
Yes. So
I'm liking it all the way, Lenny. And folks, let's just
those readings, I invite those who might be interested in listening to those stories and who are interested in investing in the future of those, because we want to get those stories up and in off Broadway, and maybe even moving to Broadway at some point in time.
That's right. I mean, Amazing Grace took a long time coming forward, but guess what? These are the new plays that are coming out of the African American theatrical experience. Coming to you, coming this year. So, Lenny, thank you so much, and God bless you. We're going to make sure they get up and seen, and people come and enjoy and experience these 2 particular stories as they should.
And I say God bless you, Byron, for every week reminding us of who we are and who our history is. And God bless you. And I hope all of your listeners do appreciate what you bring to them and the amount of work and effort and love that you put into your presentation each week.
Thank you so much. We're going to see you on Monday. I'll be there. I promise.
All right. See you Monday.
God bless you.
Bye.
All right. I got another phone caller on. Let's bring him on in, because I've got 13 more pieces of history I got to squeeze into this hour, folks. So who's on the air? Good evening and welcome to the BCS Experience. Who might you be? Hello, you're on the air. All right. Well, we're going to keep right on moving, folks. Story number 2. It's Thursday. It's September the 13th. The year is 1663. So you see, on this date in 1663, the first known slave revolt occurred in Gloucester County, Virginia. The conspiracy between black slaves and indentured servants was betrayed by the indentured servants. They weren't our friends. They weren't slaves. They were not African slaves. They were indentured white servants, betraying the freedom movement of those Africans coming in Virginia. That was 1663, folks. So don't be surprised that you have, all of a sudden, you got Ferguson, you got Baltimore, you got New Orleans. You see, those are not the latest. They're just in a string of incidents that dated all the way back to 1663. All right. This number 2, the year, the date. It's September the 9th. The year is 1793. You see, the largest slave rebellion in North America on this date, September the 9th, 1739, the Stono Rebellion, the largest slave insurrection in British colonial America began. That's right, 1739. This is before the Declaration of Independence. Well, by the time the uprising was quelled, 40 to 45 and 40 to 45 whites and 44 Africans would be killed. On Sunday morning, a group of roughly 20 slaves from the Congo-Angola region of Africa rendezvoused at the Stono River in the colony of South Carolina, about 20 miles southwest of Charleston. First, they stopped at a firearms shop, killed the owner, and supplied themselves with guns and ammunition. It's all about freedom, people. These were the heroes from way back, 1739. Then they marched south towards Spanish Florida, a well-known refuge for runaways. And as the group marched south, they were joined by nearly 60 additional enslaved Africans. They burned 7 plantations and killed 20 to 25 whites along the way. These were freedom fighters, folks. These weren't rioters. They were freedom fighters. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Freedom fighters. That's what you've got to get and understand. I got to take a break, but when we come back, I'm going to continue this story and pick up that caller who came back with us. So don't go away. You're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. I'll be right back after these very important words.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say, now is your chance. You can have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation and following, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We can help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 or visit www.goproradio.com, and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own professional radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. Why are you paying for radio? Are you serious? GoPro Radio offers content for free. Go to www.goproradio.com and listen to original, irreverent, and exceptional talk shows. It's free. Go to www.goproradio.com now. It's that simple and free. www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head. Oh.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back on the BCS Experience. Hey, I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with most. We're talking history, a celebration of known and unknown heroes and sheroes that need to be recognized for their amazing contributions to the rich cultural legacy of African Americans and the African diaspora. Wow, we started off with a tribute and an honor to the 4 little black girls who lost their lives in 1963. Now we're talking about this historic piece, number 2. This was the largest slave rebellion in North America. It happened in 1739, Stono Rebellion. Did you know about that? Well, come on, let me finish the rest of the story. You see, the next day, a well-armed and mounted militia numbering roughly 100 men caught up with the Africans near the Edisto River, and in the ensuing confrontation, 44 slaves were killed. The colonists decapitated them and mounted their heads on stakes along major roadways to serve as warning for other slaves who might consider revolt. You see how they treated those black African slaves? Because they wanted their freedom. Oh, and then they cut off their heads. Yeah, they racially profiled them. They did a KKK routine on them. They bum rushed them, cut their heads off. Do you think that was a humane thing to do for people who wanted to get their freedom? Well, white folks did that, people. You got to remember that. That's the history of America. You see, in the aftermath of the rebellion, planters decided they had to develop a slave population that was native born, believing they would be more content if they grew up enslaved. Sounds like the Willie Lynch letter. Do you know about Willie Lynch? Attributing the rebellion to the recently imported Africans, planters decided to cut off the supply. They enacted a 10-year moratorium on slave importation through Charleston. After they opened it up to international trade again, they did not import slaves from the Congo-Angolian region. You want to know why? Because those men and women from there wanted freedom beyond belief. They would die for their rights to stay free. The slave revolts. You got to remember that, people. In addition to the South Carolina legislature passed the Negro Act of 1740. It required a ratio of 1 white to 10 blacks on any plantation. It prohibited slaves from growing their own food, assembling in groups, earning money, or learning to read. The site where the rebellion began was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1974. Wow, what a story. And if you didn't learn about that in your school in history, your school is denying you your ancestry and your right to know how to overcome slavery, your right to freedom. That's what education is supposed to be giving you. All right, I got a caller on the line. Who's on the line joining us? Welcome. Hello, caller. You're on the line. Welcome to the BCS Experience. Who are you?
Douglas.
Douglas.
Hello?
My friend Douglas, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you today?
Well, I can't complain. It's another blessed day in paradise. And as they say in my particular house of worship, I am blessed and highly favored. I hope you are too as well, Douglas. Have you been listening to the history here that I've been giving?
I have, and that was the largest slave rebellion in North America, but the largest slave rebellion in the Western Hemisphere followed in 1791, which was the rebellion in Haiti led by Toussaint Louverture, and he killed over 40,000 French troops, as well as reinforcements that were sent. And that rebellion is by and large responsible. Those two rebellions, by and large, responsible for a lot of the stereotypes that were perpetrated on African Americans since that time, because they prevented us from meeting, congregating, learning to read and write. In the slave rebellion in Haiti, there were over 250,000 slaves in Haiti. Haiti was the largest slave population in the Western Hemisphere at that time, and they produced 46% of the world's cotton that was being manufactured in England at the time. And when the slave rebellion hit, the world economy went into a tailspin for several years because it was not only one of the largest producers of cotton at the time, but it was also one of the largest producers of sugarcane. And hence the triangle of trade, which was sugarcane, cotton, slaves, and such between the United States, the Caribbean, and England. And as a result of that, slave revolt, when it shut down world production of cotton and fabric, many of those plantation owners came to the United States, and they went to Cuba and the United States, where they brought their knowledge of management of slaves, of production of cotton, of production of sugarcane, and they first started the ramp up of cotton production after Eli Whitney created the cotton gin in 1793.
He stole that. He stole that from the slaves who really made it, and then he patented it under his name.
Yes, he did. And
so Douglas, here's the deal: that slave revolt that you mentioned in Haiti, where Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines defeated Napoleon's vaunted navy, as you said and stated, it's a historic fact. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, it was not until 2004 that France absolved Haiti in payments, ladies and gentlemen, for the defeat of Napoleon. That's right. I mean, the wretched of the earth, my friends. You got to understand why as Douglas is sharing with us, why these slave revolts are so important, because it just didn't start yesterday, all right? We have been fighting for our freedom for over 400 plus years, and thank goodness for heroes like Toussaint Louverture. Thank goodness for the first Western democracy in the Western Hemisphere was Haiti, not the United States of America, but Haiti. That's right. We owe a much honor to the Haitians. You better know who to respect.
We certainly do. And as a result of that revolt, it so defeated Napoleon that it led to Napoleon selling the Louisiana Purchase to the United States because he was fearful that he could not secure New Orleans and Louisiana and retrenched to reconfigure his army, pulling 20,000 troops out of Louisiana and thereby selling it to the United States. The United States bought
incredible because when you learn about the Louisiana contract and the Monroe Doctrine, and you learn about the 1812, the song, in 1814, we took a little trip along the mighty Mississippi. You remember that song they made famous? Well, it was talking about what all this has started, folks, was because of that Haitian Revolution. This country was in fear of the African revolt, and it still is. You talk about Ferguson, you talk about Baltimore, you talk about the uprisings that we've had ongoing. These are not riots, people. These are slave revolts. And you need to put that into your vocabulary and start calling it as such and stop letting media dictate sound bites of what's really going on. Hey, Douglas, I got 13 other historic facts to give. I got to roll some of this, so I want you to take a listen to this. All right, here's number 3. It's the date. It's Saturday. It's September the 12th. It's 1840. You see, the birth of Mary Jane Patterson is in 1840 is stated on this date. She was a black teacher. Born in Raleigh, North Carolina, Patterson was the oldest of Henry and Emmeline Patterson's 7 children. You see, in 1856, she and her family moved to Oberlin, Ohio, where they joined a growing community of free black families who worked to send their children to the college. Her father worked as a master mason, and for many years, family boarded large numbers of black students in their home. They boarded them, folks. In 1862, she graduated from Oberlin College, becoming the first black woman to receive a BA degree from an established American college. Eventually, 4 Patterson children graduated from Oberlin College and all became teachers. Mary Jane Patterson's first known teaching appointment was in 1865 when she became an assistant to Fanny Jackson in the female department of the Institute of Colored Youth in Philadelphia. In 1869, Patterson accepted a teaching position in Washington, D.C. at the newly organized Preparatory High School for Colored Youth, later known as Dunbar High School. She served as the school's first black principal from 1871 to 1874, and during her administration, the name Preparatory High School was dropped. High school commencements were initiated, and a teacher training department was added. Patterson's commitment to thoroughness, as well as her personality, helped her establish the school's strong intellectual standards. Patterson also devoted time and money to other black institutions in Washington, D.C., especially to industrial schools for young black women, as well as to the Home for Aged and Infirm Colored People. She never married, nor did her 2 Oberlin-educated sisters, Cheney and Emmeline, who later joined her and taught in district schools. Patterson died in Washington, D.C., September the 24th, 1894, at the age of 54. Her pioneering educational attainments and her achievements as a leading black educator influenced generations of black students. All right, number 4 on my list. The date. It's Friday. It's September the 10th. The year is 1847. You see, this date marks the birth of John Roy Lynch, a black politician, in 1847. You see, born a slave in Concordia Parish, Louisiana, Lynch was freed during the American Civil War and settled in Natchez, Mississippi. There he learned the photography business and attended night school, and in 1869 entered public life as Justice of the Peace for Natchez County. In November 1869, Lynch was elected to the Mississippi House of Representatives and reelected in 1871. Although blacks were never in the majority in the Mississippi legislature, Lynch was chosen Speaker of the House in 1872. That same year, he was elected to Congress and reelected in 1874. But by 1876, Reconstruction was over and Lynch was defeated for a third term. In 1880, he ran again and was declared the loser. But he contested and the decision, and he eventually was returned to his congressional seat. In the House, he backed civil rights legislation. See, Lynch retired to his plantation in Adams County, Mississippi in 1883, and in 1889 he returned to public office when President Benjamin Harrison appointed him fourth auditor of the U.S. Treasury for the Navy Department. Always active in the Republican Party, Lynch served as a delegate to the National Republican Conventions of 1872, 1884, 1888, 1892, and 1900. He was temporarily chairman in 1884, the first black to preside over a national convention of a major U.S. political party. You see, in his book, The Facts of Reconstruction, written in 1913, Lynch attempted to dispel the erroneous notion that Southern state governments after the Civil War were under the control of blacks. After the Civil War, John Lynch served in the Mississippi. He was prominent in Republican Party affairs of 1870, 1880, and he died November the 2nd, 1939, in Chicago, Illinois. Now, what's really incredible about that, folks, when you think about tonight's Republican Party debate, you remember this man was the chairman of the National Republican Party back in 1883. Oh my goodness. This was an African American. And see how many African Americans are in that audience tonight. And the only one up there, Mr. Dr. Carson. But I'm telling you, the Republican Party has changed over. It is no longer the party that Abraham Lincoln belonged to, nor the party in which John Roy Lynch was the chairman of the National Republican Party. How about that, Douglas? Anyway, we got more. I know you're listening. Do I have to take a break here, Mel? I can keep going. I love it. I got number 5 on the hit parade today. Here's the date. It's September the 11th, and the year is 1851. You see, on this date in 1851, the Christiana resistance occurred, a race riot that was the first recorded open resistance to the 1850 Fugitive Slave Law. A group of blacks routed a band of slave catchers attempting to enslave escaped slaves in Christiana, Pennsylvania. This incident happened at the home of William Parker, and escaped slaves. One white was killed and one wounded. Afterwards, there was a great public outcry from both the North and the South. Frederick Douglass viewed the violence at Christiana as having a special moral and political significance because the event was evidence of black strength, violent resistance, and African American courage and determination were exhibited on a national stage through this event. Southern editors expressed anger and shock. Sounds like today, doesn't it? Both positions, the intense opinion about slavery in America in the years prior to the Civil War. So what's changed, folks? That was back in 18 what? What did I say? That was 1851? You tell me that didn't sound like Ferguson. That didn't sound like Cleveland. That didn't sound like Charleston. Come on, people. Stop thinking that history is an anomaly. We're talking about a 400-plus years of this kind of ongoing hashtag Black Lives Matter, people. It's not something new, and stop letting white folks dictate that to us. It's our time. Stand up, black men. Stand up, black women. Protect our families. Protect your children. Protect your village. That's what this is all about. All right, we got number 6 on the hit parade. The date, it's Saturday. It's September the 13th. The year is 1856. Maria Louise Baldwin, a black teacher, was born on this date in 1856. Maria Baldwin was the oldest daughter of Peter L. and Mary E. Baldwin of Cambridge, Massachusetts, where she spent all of her school days. And at the age of 5, she entered the Sargent Primary School, attended the Alston Grammar School, and finally the Cambridge High School, graduating in 1874. She entered the training school for teachers in the same city and graduated from there in 1 year later. Her first teaching experience was in Chestertown, Maryland, where she did excellent work for 2 years. In 1881, she was appointed as teacher of primary grades in the public schools of Cambridge. And in 1889, after teaching in all the grades from the 1st to the 7th, Baldwin was made principal of the Agassiz School. She hesitated about accepting this position for a long time, her native modesty making her feel she was not worthy to step into the place held by so fine a person as her predecessor. But upon being urged, she decided to take it on condition that if at the end of a certain time the Board of Education was not satisfied with her, or she was satisfied that she was not the one for the place, she would return to her former position. Guess what? She remained principal for 4 years. In April 1916, when the school was torn down and a new building was erected at the cost of $60,000, Baldwin was made master of the new Agassiz School, one of but 2 women masters in the city of Cambridge. Baldwin remained master for 40 years. The school, including all grades from kindergarten to 8th, was one of the best in the city and attended by children of professors and many of the old Cambridge families. The 12 teachers under Baldwin and the 500 pupils were all white. That's right, a black school principal. Oh my goodness. Baldwin was always a student. She took many courses from professors at Harvard and other colleges. She was a great reader, both intensive and extensive, and her fine library was an example of her range. Maria Baldwin died on January 9, 1922. In 1916, Agassiz School building was torn down. In 1993 and in 1995, a new Agassiz School building was dedicated. On February the 12th, 2004, the school was officially named the Maria L. Baldwin School. Great story. A shero, someone I know you've never heard about. You better learn about these people, my folks. These are the richness and the glory of our ancestors. Stories you need to be listening and learning right in your schools today. And if they're not teaching you or giving you any of this information, they are destined to fill your existence, leading you to nowhere. You've got to know who you are in order to get to where you're going to be. All right, we're at number 7, the date. It's Sunday. It's September the 12th. The year is 1858. You see, on this date, 1858, the Oberlin-Wellington rescue occurred.
It's
Oberlin,
8
Ohio.
o'clock.
Taking place in Lorain County, Ohio, this was a key episode in the history of the abolition movement in the United States. Shortly before the American Civil War, a United States Marshal in Oberlin, Ohio, arrested John Price, a runaway slave from Maysville, Kentucky. You see, under the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, the federal government assisted slaveholders in reclaiming their runaway slaves. The marshal knew that many Oberlin residents were committed to abolitionism, and the town and the college were known for their radical anti-slavery stance. To avoid conflict with locals and to quickly get the slave to Columbus and en route to the slave's owner in Kentucky, the marshal quickly took Price to nearby Wellington, Ohio, to board a train. Well, a group of residents rushed to Wellington. They joined like-minded residents of Wellington and attempted to free Price. Well, after peaceful negotiations failed, the rescuers stormed the hotel and found Price in the attic. The group immediately returned Price to Oberlin, where they hid him in the home of James Harris Fairchild, a future president of Oberlin College. A short time later, they took Price to Canada. Under the British rule, Canada had no slavery. Well, a federal grand jury brought indictments against 37 of those who freed Price. 12 of the rescuers indicted were free blacks, among them Charles Henry Langston. He and his brother, John Mercer Langston, were both Oberlin College graduates and led the Ohio Anti-Slavery Society at the time. They both were politically active all their lives. Charles in Kansas and John taking leadership roles in the state and national politics. In 1888, becoming the first African American to be elected to the U.S. Congress from Virginia. Feelings had run high in Ohio in the aftermath of Price's rescue, and when the federal jury issued its indictment, state authorities arrested the federal marshal, his deputies, and other men involved in John Price's detention. After negotiations, state officials agreed to release arresting officials, while federal officials agreed to release 35 of the men indicted. Simeon M. Bushnell, a white man, and Charles H. Langston were the only two men to go to jail. The judge gave light sentences, assigning Bushnell to 60 days in jail and Langston to 20 days. Bushnell and Langston filed a writ of habeas corpus with the Ohio Supreme Court, claiming that the federal court did not have the authority to arrest and try them before the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 was unconstitutional. The Ohio Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the law by a 3-2 ruling. Members of Ohio's abolitionist community were incensed that this took place. More than 10,000 people participated in a Cleveland rally to oppose the federal and state court's decisions. And in time, regional tensions over slavery, constitutional interpretation, and other factors led to the outbreak of the Civil War. The Oberlin-Wellington rescue is considered important for attracting widespread national attention in a region of Ohio known for its activity with the Underground Railroad. Those who participated in the rescue and their allies continue to be active in Ohio and national politics. Two participants in the Oberlin-Wellington rescue, Lewis Sheridan Leary and John A. Copeland, along with the Oberlin resident Shields Green, went to join John Brown's raids on Harper's Ferry in 1859. Leary was killed during the attack on October the 20th, 1859. Copeland and Green were captured and tried with John Brown. They were convicted of treason on December 16, 1859. And one more piece of information to go along with that. That gentleman, Mr. Charles W. Langston, guess what? That was Langston Hughes' grandfather, because he lived in Lawrence, Kansas. That's right. See, you got to know how to connect these dots, people. This is just not what you call an anomaly. This is why we must understand our roots of our history, because the dots that we connect are to our family ancestral trees of heroes and sheroes, and that's going to lead us to freedom and to freedom land. All right, I got one more to go before we take this break. All right, the date, this is number 8 on the big time list. The date, it's Thursday. It's September the 10th, 1863. And on this date in 1863, Jesse Moreland was born. He was a black minister, community executive, and civic leader. Jesse Edward Moreland came from Coldwater, Ohio, the only child of a farming family. When he was an infant, his mother died, and his father left him to be raised by his maternal grandparents. Moreland attended Northwestern Normal University in Ada, Ohio. Upon graduation, he taught in the public school system of nearby Urbana before moving to enroll in the theological department of Howard University. Moreland received his master's degree in 1891 and was ordained a congressional minister and and appointed secretary of the Washington, D.C. branch of the YMCA, all in the same year. 2 years later, He relocated to Nashville, Tennessee for a pastoral appointment at Howard Chapel, and in 1896 he became pastor of Cleveland's Mount Zion Congregational Church, and as the 20th century approached, was involved in a movement to make Protestantism relevant to the current social conditions. In 1898, he accepted a post as an administrator and fundraiser in the Colored Men's Department of the YMCA. I got to take a break, but when we come back, you need to know why this man's name is so important in the history of the African American in this United States. All right, you're listening to the BCS Experience on the GoPro Radio Network. I'll be right back, right after these very important words.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say, now is your chance. You can have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation and following, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We can help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 or visit www.goproradio.com, and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own professional radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, already. I'm back on the BCS Experience. Hey, listen, we got history. We were stopped right before the commercial break on number 8. We were talking about Jesse Moreland, born in 1863. Well, here we're going to pick it right back up. While in this position, Moreland developed many programs for cultural self-improvement, including lectures, debates, Bible classes, workshops on job skills, literacy classes, and sports. You see, in 1914, he became senior secretary, continuing to build and strengthen the YMCA into a national institution. He retired from there in 1923. Now, Moreland then devoted himself to black social organizations such as the National Health Circle for colored people, and he helped found the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History with Carter G. Woodson in 1915. That same year, he donated his personal library on black history to Howard University. This collection formed the foundation of the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. Jesse Moreland died in New York in 1939. All right, number 9 on the list, the date. It's Tuesday. It's September the 11th. It's 1866. You see, Charles W. Scrutcheon was born on this date in 1866. He was an African-American lawyer. Scrutcheon was born in Richmond, Virginia, to Barbara Grustine and William Scrutcheon. The family moved to Georgia when he was 10 years old and moved again when he was a teenager to Spokane, Washington, where he graduated from high school. In 1890, Scrutcheon got his undergraduate degree, which he accomplished in 3 years from the University of Washington. He worked as a Pullman porter and hotel waiter in Detroit, Buffalo, and St. Paul, Minnesota, before deciding to go to law school. After a failed marriage, Scrutcheon, at 25, entered the law school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. He graduated in 1893. Relocated to Chicago and began his practice under Edward H. Morris. In 1894, he went back to Ann Arbor to get his master's degree, and 4 years later arrived in St. Paul. There he became friends with 2 black lawyers, Frederick McGee and William T. Francis. Later, in 1898, Scrutcheon started practicing law in Bemidji, Minnesota. Scrutcheon married Paula P. Arnold in 1890, and like many of his professional peers, he grounded his practice in criminal law. And during his first year, he won an acquittal for a man charged with stealing 10 tons of hay. Wow. He was the Perry Mason of his day. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, we're going to move on to number 10. It's the date, the year, 1874. It's September the 14th. You see, on this date in 1874, white Democrats seized the Louisiana State House in a takeover. This white resistance and occupation has been called the Battle of Liberty Place. Taking place in New Orleans, 3,500 Confederacy members took over the City Hall State House and an arsenal. White folks just went wild, and y'all. President Ulysses S. Grant ordered the insurgents to disperse and sent in federal troops. 27 persons, 16 whites and 11 blacks were killed. A great deal of damage was done, and the whites were defeated. The uprising was so severe that the federal army remained in Louisiana for a number of years. All right, number 11 on the hit list here today, folks. The date, it's a Monday. It's September the 13th. The year is 1886. You see, on this date marks the birth of Alain Locke in 1885. He was an African-American philosopher and credited with defining the Harlem Renaissance. Born into Philadelphia's black elite, Alain Leroy Locke was the only child of an established free black family. By high school, he was an accomplished pianist and violinist. And in 1907, Locke received a BA in philosophy magna cum laude from Harvard University. That's right. The same year, Locke became the first African American to be awarded a Rhodes Scholarship, which he used to further his study of philosophy at Oxford University and the University of Berlin. Locke returned to the United States in 1911 and in 1912 joined the faculty of Howard University as a professor of philosophy and of English, a position he held for the rest of his life. Alain Locke, folks, you got to know these people. They're very important. All right, I got two more pieces to do, and then 13 and 14 are critical, but I got another caller on the line. So let me get this next piece out. We'll bring the caller in and go to the end of the show. All right, the date, it's important. Number 12, it's a Monday. It's September the 13th. The year is 1886. Well, you see, this date in 1886 marks the origin of Princess Anne Academy. This was one of the schools for blacks that paved the way towards America's many historically black colleges and universities. Founded as the Delaware Conference Academy, it can be found in Princess Anne on the eastern shore of Maryland. This school was organized by Morgan College. Records show that 37 students were enrolled by the end of this year, and later about 200 pupils were enrolled, and for lack of room, it was necessary to turn away more pupils than they were received. In connection with the standard elementary and secondary schools of the goals of the school, special emphasis was put on industrial education. The state of Maryland, in operating its land grant program at the Maryland Agricultural College at College Park, to which African Americans were not admitted as students, sought to provide a land grant program for African Americans and assume control of the Princess Anne Academy, renaming it the Eastern Shore branch of the Maryland Agricultural College. The arrangement was in effect in 1919. All right, I got a caller on the line. Who's on the line?
Bless you.
Well,
this is
good evening.
Reverend Dr. DLC Boyce. How are you?
Reverend Dr. DLC Boyce, how are you this evening?
I am wonderful and great. Blessed and highly favored. How about yourself?
Well, I can't complain. I'm blessed and highly favored. My life is filled with so much rich of rewards of the history of our heroes and sheroes, Dr. Boyce. Can you imagine all these amazing stories and not a single one of them being taught in school today?
Well, we can fix that over at Let's Talk You. We can.
That's right. Let's Talk You. Right here at Canarsie.
Right here in the Canarsie section of Brooklyn, we can fix that. If
That's
you remember the one-room schoolhouse where everyone learned collectively, you got the same message at the same time. Hey, sounds like the day of Pentecost. The same message at the same time. We need to know about our heroes and sheroes.
Amen.
We need to hear from our griots about what so many patents, so many giants that we are unaware of. I thank you for sharing with us.
Well, I thank you for calling in. And, hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to be with Let's Talk You right on the campus in Brooklyn, Canarsie. So, folks, I'm telling you, get all of this on the BCS Experience. And, Dr. Boyce, these last two pieces, this is heartbreaking. I was moved by what I read about this story. This is what I call the BCS Experience Blog News Snaps. Here's the date. This was just a couple weeks ago, folks. Remember that picture of the toddler found dead on the beach? His aunt said this was a... Remember that picture of the toddler found dead on the beach? His aunt said this was a Syrian refugee escaping the vestiges and tragedies of war in Syria. This 2-year-old little boy found on the beach dead. The message from his aunt said, she said, this is a message from God to wake up the world. Aylin Purdy, 2, drowned. Y'all take a look at that picture. First, the picture of the 2-year-old alive, and then that picture of him head down in the sand. He drowned when a boat carrying his family and other migrants capsized in rough seas while traveling from Turkey and Greece earlier this month as a result of the war in Syria. An image of Kurdi's body face down in the sand in the Turkish resort of Bodrum Beach, a Turkish beach resort, was met with shock from around the world. People, it is sad when the children of the world are subjected to the ignorance and insanity of war, racism, oppression, and poverty. This breaks my heart. This breaks my heart, people. This picture is very painful to take. And this is how mankind treats a child of God? They're all guilty for the loss of this child and all other children that have become victims of our insanity. All of us, people, our hands are with the blood of this child. How dare you? All right. That's the BCS Experience for today. We're GoProRadio.com, your social network's live talk radio show. Produced and sponsored by Iron Metropolis Images. Tyler on you, Xavier Washington, producer. Mel Alsap, my line engineer. Thank you, Mel, for rolling this today. We started off with a tribute to the 4 young women killed in the Birmingham bombing church. And we end with the loss of this child. Another child. We have got to stop the insanity, y'all. All right, a special thanks to Jazz Lounge Project and Andrew Julian Myers for my fabulous show's theme music. Thank you, Mike Sargent. You brought that to my attention. You helped put that together. Hey, tune in next Wednesday when on my show, the BCS Experience, History, Arts, Culture, Politics, and Review and Discussion will be on from 5 to 6 p.m. live right here on the GoPro Radio Network. Hey, listen, our summer fall lineup is incredible. You got the roll-up. You got the Spotlight with Earl Morgan on Mondays. You got Cult of Dusty. You got Face the Facts, Prince Solomon Carter, and Soulful House of Collage. Soulful House Collage. All these episodes right here on the GoPro Radio Network. Hey, I'm Byron C. Saunders, and it's been all about the BCS Experience. Join me next Wednesday when my very special guest will be you, my listening audience. Well, I got to go. I'm out of here for the moment. Peace and love. Always.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right,
You're
guys,
listening
great
to
show.
content
Thank you.
developed by the GoPro Radio